The winter nights in Dehradun always felt strange, especially after midnight. When the roads became empty, the street dogs stopped barking, and the cold silence felt heavier than usual. That night was no different. The time was exactly 2:13 a.m. Abhishek had just returned from his local library after studying all day. He was exhausted. He plugged his phone into the charger, turned off the lights, and dropped onto his bed. Just as he closed his eyes, his phone vibrated. Unknown number. He ignored it. A few seconds later, the phone rang again. Now it felt strange. Who calls someone at 2 in the morning? He answered. For several seconds, there was complete silence. Then a week-old woman's voice whispered, "Are you still living in that room?" Abhishek frowned. "Who is this?" Silence. Then the woman whispered again, "Don't open the window." The call disconnected. Abhishek stared at the screen. A cold feeling slowly crawled up his spine. He tried convincing himself it was just some prank call. Then suddenly, tap, tap. A soft knocking sound came from the window. His room was on the second floor. There was no balcony outside. Slowly, he turned toward the curtains. They were moving, as if someone was standing outside. He swallowed nervously. Maybe it was the wind. But the air outside was completely still. Tap, tap. This time louder. Abhishek slowly got out of bed. His legs felt weak. He carefully walked toward the window and slightly pulled the curtain aside. Nothing. Only an empty road, a flickering street light, and deep darkness. He exhaled in relief. Then his eyes moved downward. Directly below the window, wet handprints were pressed against the outside wall. No human could possibly reach that height. That night, Abhishek barely slept. The next morning, he told his friend Karen everything. Karen laughed. "You seriously watched too many horror videos." Abhishek forced himself to laugh too. But deep down, something felt wrong. That evening, while studying in the library, he noticed a girl staring at him. He had never seen her before. Her face looked pale, dark circles under her eyes, and she wore the exact same gray sweater he thought he had seen outside his window the previous night. Abhishek looked away and continued studying. 10 minutes later, he realized she was still staring. Uncomfortably, without blinking, he finally stood up and went to drink water. When he returned, the girl was gone, but a folded piece of paper was lying on her desk. He opened it. Only one sentence was written: "If the call comes again, don't answer it." His throat went dry. He searched the entire library for the girl. Nobody had seen her. Even the librarian claimed no girl had been sitting there. Now Abhishek was genuinely disturbed. That night, he decided to put his phone on silent mode. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the phone started ringing anyway. This time, there was no number. The screen only displayed unknown caller. Abhishek answered with trembling hands. "Hello." Heavy breathing, slow, wet. Then the same old woman whispered, "She's inside the room now." The call ended. Abhishek instantly switched on the lights. The room was empty, but then the bathroom door slowly began closing by itself. Krayak. His heartbeat exploded. Water dripped inside, tap, tap, tap. He slowly approached the bathroom. The door was fully shut now. He grabbed the handle and pulled it open. Nobody inside. But written on the mirror with wet fingers were two words: "Don't sleep." That night, Abhishek stayed awake until sunrise. The next morning, he confronted the landlord, Sharma Jai. At first, the old man avoided the topic, but eventually his expression changed. Quietly, he said, "The girl before you disappeared." Abhishek froze. Disappeared. She was a law student. Her name was Neha. Very quiet girl. One night she simply vanished. Did the police investigate? Yes. Her phone was found inside the room. The door was locked from the inside, but she was never found. Abhishek felt sick. Then he asked what time did she disappear. Sharma Jai looked at him nervously. 2:13 a.m. The room fell silent. Now everything connected. The calls, the girl. The handprints, the time. That night, Abhishek decided he needed answers. He searched online for information about Neha. After nearly an hour, he found an old news article. It stated that Neha was last seen leaving her library late at night. After that, she disappeared. But the most horrifying part wasn't the article. It was the photograph, because the girl in the photo was the exact same girl from the library. Abhishek nearly dropped his phone. He immediately called Karen and told him everything. Karen stopped laughing. That night, Karen came over to stay with him. They decided to remain awake and record everything. A camera was placed facing the room. At first, nothing happened. 12 o'clock a.m., 1 o'clock a.m., 1:45 a.m. Suddenly, the room temperature dropped. Their breath became visible in the air. Karen nervously joked, "There's definitely no AC in this room," but even he sounded afraid now. 1:59 a.m. The camera screen flickered. 2:07 a.m. The lights dimmed. 2:10 a.m. Bang, bang, bang. Something slammed violently against the window, like someone trying to break in. Karen stepped backward. This isn't funny anymore. 2:12 a.m. The phone rang. Unknown caller. This time they turned on speaker mode. Heavy breathing echoed through the room. Then suddenly a young woman screamed, "He's coming, run." The lights instantly shut off. Darkness swallowed the room. Then came footsteps. From the bathroom, slow. Bare feet, thud, thud, thud. Karen switched on his flashlight. The beam landed directly on the bathroom door. It was half open. Something stood inside, tall. Extremely tall. Its head nearly touched the ceiling. Its face was hidden in darkness, but its eyes were completely white. Suddenly it charged toward them. Karen screamed. The camera fell. The video shook violently. Only screams could be heard. Then the footage abruptly ended. The next morning, Abhishek was found unconscious outside the room. But Karen was gone. Completely gone. Just like Neha. The police investigated. Nothing was found. People assumed Karen had run away. But Abhishek knew the truth. He left the room that same day. Months passed. Things slowly felt normal again. Then one night, while sleeping in his new apartment in another city, his phone rang. The time was exactly 2:13 a.m. The screen displayed Karen calling. Abhishek's blood turned cold. He answered, heavy breathing. Then a weak whisper, "It will never let you go." The call disconnected. Abhishek never told anyone this story afterward. But the truly horrifying part happened 3 months later. One morning he walked into his bathroom and froze, because written across the mirror again in wet fingerprints were the same words, "Don't sleep." And beneath them, fresh wet handprints slowly dripped down the glass. In 2022, a private coaching hostel near Kota was shut down for almost 3 months after a student disappeared. Officially, people were told he ran away because of exam pressure. But the students living there knew something else happened. Something nobody wanted to talk about after midnight. This story came from a boy named Samir. At first, even I thought he was lying, until he showed me the recordings. Samir was preparing for engineering entrance exams. Like thousands of other students in Koda, his life had become a cycle: wake up, classes, tests, library, sleep, repeat. He stayed in a 5-story hostel called Shiv Residency. The building itself felt strange. Old yellow walls, long silent corridors, tube lights that buzzed constantly, and a basement nobody was allowed to enter. The owner always gave the same reason: storage area. But students noticed something odd. Every night around 2 a.m. sounds came from downstairs. Metal dragging, footsteps, sometimes crying. One student even claimed he heard somebody whispering his name from the staircase. Most people ignored it, until Rohit disappeared. Rohit lived on the 3rd floor. Quiet guy, rarely talked, always studied late at night. One morning his room was found open. His books were still on the table, phone charging, wallet untouched, but Rohit himself was gone. No CCTV footage showed him leaving the building, no fight, no screams, nothing. It was like he simply vanished. After that incident, students became paranoid. Some left the hostel, others stopped going out after midnight. But Samir stayed, mainly because he couldn't afford another place. And because deep down he didn't fully believe the rumors, not yet. 3 weeks later, Samir began noticing strange things. Every night at exactly 2:17 a.m. someone walked through the corridor outside his room. Slow footsteps, always the same pattern: thack, thack, thack. The footsteps stopped directly outside his door. Then silent. The first few nights Samir ignored it. He assumed another student was going to the washroom. But eventually curiosity took over. One night he looked through the peephole. The corridor was empty, yet the footsteps continued: thack, 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 as if someone invisible was standing outside. Then suddenly the footsteps stopped. A soft scratching sound came from the lower part of the door. Scrrrrrrrrr. Like fingernails dragging slowly across wood. Samir jumped backward. His heartbeat exploded. The scratching continued for nearly 30 seconds. Then silence returned. The next morning he checked the door. 4 long scratch marks were carved into the wood, deep, fresh. That evening, Samir spoke with another student named Arjun. Instead of laughing, Arjun became serious. Then he quietly asked, "You hear the footsteps too?" Samir froze. Arjun explained that several students had heard them. But nobody reported it because the hostel owner became aggressive whenever anyone mentioned strange activity. Then Arjun revealed something worse. According to older students, years ago the basement had not been a storage area. It used to contain extra hostel rooms. But after a suicide incident, the basement was permanently sealed. Officially, only one student died. Unofficially, students claimed multiple people disappeared there over the years. Samir dismissed it as exaggerated ghost stories. But that night changed everything. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the footsteps returned. Thack, thack, thack. This time louder, closer. Samir sat frozen on his bed. Then came knocking. 3 slow knocks, tug, tug, tug. He gathered courage and shouted, "Who's there?" No answer. Then his phone vibrated. Unknown number. He answered nervously. Heavy breathing. Then a whisper, "Don't open the door." The call disconnected. At the exact same moment, the knocking stopped. Complete silence filled the corridor. Samir slowly approached the peephole. Nothing outside. But then a face suddenly appeared inches away from the peephole. A pale eye stared directly into his. Samir screamed and stumbled backward. The face vanished instantly. The next morning, he checked CCTV footage with the security guard. Between 2:16 and 2:20 a.m., the corridor camera showed complete static. Every single night. Only that time period. Nothing before. Nothing after. The guard refused to discuss it further. He simply said, after 2 a.m., lock your door and don't look outside. That warning disturbed Samir more than the actual footage, because the guard sounded genuinely afraid. Days passed. Then one rainy night, the hostel lost electricity. Emergency lights turned the corridors dark red. Most students stayed inside their rooms. At around 2 a.m., Samir heard something different. Not footsteps crying. Someone was crying downstairs near the staircase. A young male voice, weak, begging for help. At first, Samir ignored it. Then he heard words clearly. Please open the basement door. His stomach tightened. The crying continued. Finally, curiosity defeated fear. Samir grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside. The corridor was empty, but the crying echoed from below, near the basement staircase. As he descended to the ground floor, the air became colder. Every tube light flickered. The crying sounded closer now, almost desperate. Then he reached the basement entrance. A rusted iron door blocked the staircase. Chains wrapped around the handles. But something immediately caught his attention. The chains were moving slightly, as if somebody on the other side was pulling them. The crying stopped. Then a voice whispered from the darkness below. Samir, his blood froze. He had never told anyone downstairs his name. The whisper came again. Please help me. Then flashlight beams suddenly appeared behind him. It was Arjun, terrified. Are you insane? He whispered. We need to leave now. Before Samir could respond, something slammed violently against the basement door. Bang. The chains rattled loudly. Another slam, bang. Then came scratching, fast, aggressive, like dozens of nails scraping metal. Arjun grabbed Samir's arm and dragged him upstairs. As they ran, both heard footsteps charging up the basement staircase behind them. Not human footsteps, too fast, too heavy. They reached the second floor before the sounds abruptly stopped. Silence. Absolute silence. The next morning, the hostel owner became furious after hearing what happened. He threatened both boys. Stay away from the basement or leave the hostel. That reaction only increased Samir's suspicion. So he started investigating secretly. After several days, he found an old newspaper article online. 10 years earlier, a fire had broken out in the hostel basement. 3 students died, but the article mentioned something strange. Witnesses reported hearing screams from locked rooms long after the fire ended. One rescuer allegedly refused to re-enter the basement after claiming he saw burned people walking in the smoke. The article disappeared from the internet a few days later, but Samir had already saved screenshots. After that discovery, the activity intensified. Lights flickered whenever Samir entered the corridor. His room temperature dropped suddenly at night, and every morning new scratch marks appeared on his door. Then one night he woke up unable to breathe. Someone was standing beside his bed, tall, extremely thin, its face hidden in darkness. Samir tried screaming, but no sound came out. The figure slowly leaned closer. He smelled something horrible. Burned flesh. Then the figure whispered, "Come downstairs." The room suddenly returned to normal. The figure vanished. Samir switched on the lights instantly. Nobody there. But on the wall near his bed, fresh black fingerprints stretched toward the floor, as if something burned had crawled across the room. The next evening, Arjun admitted something shocking. 2 nights earlier, he had seen Rohit standing near the basement staircase. completely motionless. Arjun called his name. Rohit slowly turned around. His face looked burned, and his eyes were completely white. Then he walked back downstairs into darkness. After hearing this, Samir decided to leave the hostel permanently. But before leaving, he wanted proof. Real proof. So on his final night, he placed his phone camera near the basement entrance and started recording. At 2:17 a.m., the basement chains began shaking violently. Then the crying started again. This time louder. Dozens of voices crying together. The flashlight trembled in Samir's hands. Then slowly, the basement door creaked open by itself. Darkness waited below. For several seconds, nothing moved. Then shapes appeared inside the staircase. Human figures, thin, burned, standing unnaturally still. One by one, they began climbing upward. Samir panicked and ran. But before reaching the stairs, he heard someone call his name. Not whispering, screaming. He turned around for 1 second and saw Rohit standing among them, smiling. Then every figure charged upward at once. The recording ended there. The next morning, Samir left the hostel forever. 3 months later, Shiv residency officially shut down. No public explanation was given. Today, the building still stands abandoned. Locals nearby claim lights sometimes appear in the basement after 2 a.m. And occasionally, people hear knocking beneath the ground. 3 slow knocks, tug, 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 as if something underneath is still trying to get out. In late 2021, a small railway station outside Lucknow became the center of a terrifying rumor after multiple night workers suddenly resigned within the same month. Officially, railway authorities blamed stress. Unofficially, people said something appeared on platform 4 after 3 a.m. Something that wasn't human. This story came from a former cleaning worker named Imran. Even now, he refuses to travel by train at night. Imran got the night shift job during the pandemic. The station was small, isolated, and mostly empty after midnight. Only 2 trains stopped there between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. Most nights were quiet. Too quiet. The station lights buzzed constantly. Stray dogs slept near tea stalls. And cold wind moved through the empty tracks like whispers. At first, nothing unusual happened. Then one night around 3:07 a.m. Imran saw a woman standing alone at the far end of platform 4. White dress, long black hair, barefoot. Completely still. At that hour, no train was scheduled. He assumed she was a lost passenger. So he walked toward her. But the closer he got, the stranger things felt. The air became freezing cold. The station sounds faded. Even the dogs stopped barking. Imran called out, "Madam." No response. The woman didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't react. He finally stopped about 20 feet away. That's when he noticed something horrifying. Her feet were backward, completely reversed. Imran froze. Slowly, the woman tilted her head toward him. Not naturally, too far, until he heard a cracking sound from her neck. Then she smiled, a wide, unnatural smile. Imran ran instantly. When he looked back, the platform was empty. The next morning, he told another worker named Suresh. Instead of laughing, Suresh became pale. Then he quietly said, "You saw her too." According to older railway staff, strange sightings had happened on platform 4 for years. Mostly after 3 a.m. Workers heard footsteps on empty tracks. Passengers reported seeing people who disappeared seconds later. One signal operator allegedly died from a heart attack after locking himself inside the control room screaming, "She's staring at me from the tracks." Most employees treated it as superstition, but nobody liked going near Platform 4 alone at night, especially after what happened in 2018. A woman reportedly jumped in front of an incoming train there. Her body was never fully recovered. Some claimed she still waited for trains every night. For several weeks, nothing happened again. Then strange things slowly began. At exactly 3:07 a.m., the station announcement system activated by itself. Static echoed through empty platforms, then distorted whispers, sometimes crying, sometimes heavy breathing. One night, Imran clearly heard a woman whisper through the speakers, "Train arriving shortly," even though no train was scheduled. The lights near Platform 4 began flickering regularly. CCTV cameras failed between 3 a.m. and 3:15 a.m. And stray dogs refused to step onto the platform. They would growl toward the tracks and back away whining. Imran tried ignoring it, until the night he heard footsteps behind him. He was cleaning near the waiting area around 3:10 a.m. The station was empty, completely silent. Then came footsteps. Bare feet, slow, wet, chap, chap, chap. He turned around instantly. Nobody there. But the footsteps continued, circling him closer, chap, chap, chap. Then suddenly a woman laughed behind him, soft, broken, right beside his ear. Imran spun around screaming, nothing. Only darkness near Platform 4. Then the station lights shut off. The entire station fell into darkness for nearly 5 seconds. When emergency power activated, someone was standing across the tracks. The same woman, watching him. This time her face was visible. Her skin looked pale gray, eyes completely black, and blood covered the lower part of her dress. Then slowly she pointed toward the tracks. Imran looked down and nearly vomited. A man was standing between the rails, motionless, facing away from him. Imran shouted